just logging in, because it's easier to do that than have to like mask up, and you can't bring food or water to class. So I have my food and everything ready to go here.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it will about to go live here. Did it notify you? Oh, yep, we're live. Okay.
Woo.
I think so.
I have the notification that says live on Facebook.
Yep, we're live now. Yay. Okay. There we go. All right. Well, hey everyone. Happy Friday. This is Dr. Mina with Bluebird Dermatology, and I'm super excited for our Facebook Live today for Eczema Awareness Month, because we have not one, but two special guests here with us today. And I've known these lovely ladies for, I guess, it's almost been like 10 years maybe at this point.
Yeah.
So I first met, so we have Holly Novak and Nina Cosme here today, and I first met these wonderful women when they weren't women at all, when they were girls who like walked through the gates of Camp for All, which is a summer camp and a place where we hold our American Academy of Dermatology sponsored Camp Discovery. That was Camp Dermadillo when they first started every summer, and it's a camp for kids with skin conditions. And I watched them kind of their very first time at camp and kind of grow through the different, every year they came back at camp and grow into just strong, confident young women, and they came back as counselors, and now they're doing just amazing things in this world, and they continue to be advocates for not only children with eczema, but anybody with this skin condition, and to embrace their unique beauty. So I'm thankful to have y'all here today. And I want to start first with this. Have y'all tell a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, where you're at, growing up and living with eczema, and how you want to live this year. And so, Holly, why don't we start with you? Just tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're at in life, and yeah, what you're doing.
So I am from Texas. So I spent a lot of time in Houston, and so I grew up going to camp, and I have eczema, and right now I'm a college student, kind of doing online college as everyone is with COVID. And I go to Texas A&M, and I'm applying to medical school, so hopefully trying to go into that route to continue doing things with medicine. So, and I don't know if you guys can see me, y'all are frozen, so there might be a tech issue. Is it working?
I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear y'all now.
Okay.
I'm back.
It just completely froze for a second there.
Were y'all still on? Because
Yeah.
I just got. Okay, well, I lost y'all when you said that you started going to camp. That's it. So why don't you start over, Holly? I hope everybody can still hear us.
This is my life is so interesting. You'll get round two just in case it didn't cut out. But no, I started going to camp when I was, I think, 7 or 8. So I've known Nina forever. But I started doing that, and I am now in college. I go to Texas A&M, and I'm trying to go to medical school. So I applied, and I'm waiting, and I'm in that whole process right now. So having a lot of fun, but yeah, all good things.
So Holly had actually emailed me earlier this year to ask me to write her a recommendation for medical school. And I was like, wait, come again? Medical school? What? When did that happen? So it's been crazy how time flies. So Nina, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Nina. I'm also from here in Texas. I'm from Houston, and I have been dealing with eczema ever since I was about 3 years old. I have, like Holly, been going to camp since I was very young. I believe I was 10-ish when I first started going, and went ever since till I couldn't go anymore, and eventually came back as a counselor. And I am at Sam Houston State University now with a concentration in theater. That is my major.
Awesome. So I guess where we can start is what was your first memory of having eczema?
Ooh.
I mean, 'cause
uh,
both of you had it when you were very young, right? I mean, so
hmm.
I don't know if you even remember a time of not having eczema, but what was the first thing you remember about it?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Nina. I've had it since, I mean, my parents kind of knew I was going to have it because my dad had it, but I've had, bad eczema since I was about 2. And I would say my first memory of it, I don't know why this is such a specific one, but I was playing soccer. I was probably about 5, like in kindergarten or so. And I'm allergic to grass, and they didn't know that at that time. And, eczema is triggered a lot by allergens. And so I was out in the field, like playing and, trying to have fun. And I just remember getting like so itchy, and then I stopped in like the middle of about to be making a goal and just started scratching. So that was like my first memory of it. It was just kind of a random one, but
How about you, Nina?
Um, I think some of my earliest memories with it, I don't know, sometimes looking back, it's kind of fuzzy looking to really younger years. But I think one of the first memories I have of mine, because I know I had to have been very young just because of the medication I was like, um, my mom was trying to see if it would work for me. So I knew it had to have been a long time ago just because where she remembers timeline wise, they were trying that for me. I was probably no older than 4, I would say, or maybe 5. And I just remember dealing with different medicines and trying different creams and ointments and them just not reacting well with me. Like I just remember it's not like a super happy memory. It's just kind of sad, but it's just more so like nothing really like working well. Like either it made me super irritated or it would burn, and it was just like struggling with like finding things to work. So I wish it were a happier memory, but I think that's probably one of the earliest memories I have just because I know when we were trying that medication I was so young.
At
mm.
that age, and we'll start with you, Nina. So at that age, what is it that you understood about eczema? And what were you told about it? What did um, you know? I guess how was it explained to you? What do you wish you would have known at that moment in time that might have helped you better? But I guess just more at 4 or 5, like you were talking about. What was it that you understood about it?
Um, I mean, my parents were always really good about telling me things as it was, but not being like overly blunt because obviously I was a child, you know what I mean? But I knew that I had something wrong with me. And while it wasn't something that was overtly life threatening or anything super serious or would cause serious complications, that it was something that was a daily thing. Like I always was pushed like, come on, we have to moisturize or we have to do this or that. And it's a condition you have, you're different, but it's not anything super bad. But still being aware that while it wasn't anything life threatening or anything super serious, it was something that was kind of just like difficult to deal with. Like another one of my earlier memories, which I couldn't remember if this one came first or the other one, but then I remembered because of the medication, it was the other one. One of my other earliest memories is I think I had known that I had this condition, but I was probably about 6 or 7 at this time, maybe even 8, a little older. And I still just really wasn't sure why, like, I'm taking medication, this and that. Cause, like, you're told if you're sick, you take medicine, you can get better, right? That's just kind of like, and not necessarily for all things, but as I think a kid, that's how the narrative went. So I knew I was sick with something and I had been trying different medications, like oral medicine and just topical medicine, and nothing was really working. So I remember asking, I was like, I keep taking medicine. I think it was my mom. And I was like, why is it like not working? Why is it still here? And she had to like that was, I think, one of the harder conversations when I was young. And this was already almost 16 years ago. But it was like, it's, yes, you're sick, but it's like it's in your immune system and that is incurable. So it's
Mhm.
something that unfortunately you're going to, if you don't grow out of it, it's something you will end up living with, like, and having to deal with for the rest of your life.
When you heard that, and this was, you said those almost 15, 16 years ago, so you were still what?
Like 5 or 6, because I'm about 20 now.
So gosh, okay, let's process that for that you're 20.
Yeah.
So as a 5-year-old hearing that, I mean, I think when you're older, that maybe that kind of sits in a different way. But as a 5-year-old hearing that, what did you feel?
I think it was just kind of a shock moment. I didn't really know how to process it because at the time I was not happy with having to deal with it. And it was just not considered, but it was just really painful and really annoying. And I was just not understanding why it wasn't, for me at least, getting like better, like it wasn't leaving or anything. So learning that, oh, if you know, because this is sometimes things that kids go through because they have allergies, but sometimes they will grow out of it. It then almost subconsciously became like a timer for me, like, oh, when I turn 18 it'll go away, you know, or oh, I maybe if I'm 12 or 13 and I stop having certain allergies, like it will go away. So then it kind of became like this subconscious thing that I always like thought about, like, oh, if I hit this date or this date and it's gone, then I'm in the clear, you know, but like also worrying, what if that day comes and that's not a reality?
So Holly, how was that? Like, how did you grow up learning and understanding about it, and how did that kind of affect you as you got older?
Oh, so mine is a little bit of the opposite. So my dad had eczema when he was a kid, and he had super bad food allergies, kind of everything I had. And then he outgrew all of it. He hit puberty and then was done with it. And he'll get like an itchy patch here and there, but he basically doesn't have it anymore. So my parents, just based on their understanding and kind of what they were told when I was really little, is that like, yeah, maybe it's worse than your dad's was, but like she'll probably grow out of it by the time she hits puberty, or when she's 18. Most people, it's just a thing they have when they're kids. So kind of the same thing Nina had. It was like this timeline of like, oh, if I can just make it through middle school, or oh, if I can just make it through high school, then I just won't have to deal with this anymore. And then I think probably around like the end of middle school, I started figuring out, this is probably something that if it hasn't gone away now, it's probably going to be with me forever. Maybe it'll get a little better. But it was kind of accepting that I might not grow out of it, and I haven't. And I've learned, different things to manage it, but it's something that you just deal with all the time. So I think having that hope of growing out of it is almost worse than if someone just tells you, hey, this is just how your body is, this is how you're going to be forever, and just kind of making that a normal thing. I wish I would have had that. But my parents are awesome people, and they just kind of did what they knew is best. And at that time, they're like, oh, you'll probably grow out of it, because a lot of kids do. But
so this is kind of started before school, but then let's talk about when you started to go to school. I guess, how did that change over time? Like, for example, when you were in elementary school versus middle school, high school, how did it affect your performance in school? You guys are both academically successful now, but how did it affect you when you were younger and your relationships with your peers? Holly, why don't you start on this one?
So I had so many fun things with school and eczema. But when I was in elementary school, I'd say, I guess we'll just start there. I went to school with my mom because she was a teacher, so she worked there, and I knew everybody really well. So the staff was pretty well aware of my conditions. They knew I had allergies, eczema, the whole thing. But as a kid going in, I found out no one else had skin like I did. No one else had to, worry about the same things that I did. And so that kind of made me a more mature person at an early age, but I couldn't do a lot of things that other kids could do. Like when it was super high pollen season, I would go and help the nurse instead of going to recess, just random things like that. And I think a big part of it was kids that don't understand it kind of will tend to lash out at something that they don't understand. And so bullying was a really big thing for me, especially when I was little, because my skin was really bad. Because right now I'm on a biologic, so my skin looks, fairly normal, which I think Nina might be on the same one. But yeah, we're both on Dupixent, so it's a great thing. But when I was a kid, you just don't know how to manage everything, and it's hard to talk about it with people. But I think through elementary school and going into middle school, I got pretty good at my spiel of like, hey, I have eczema, I have this, I have that, it's not contagious. I just got really comfortable presenting that. And a big part of me being comfortable with that was going to camp and learning that, hey, I'm not the only one that has this. And then through high school and college, it was just kind of my everyday life at that point. I had embraced it. But it does still make things difficult even now. Like just going out to eat with friends. I have a lot of severe food allergies or things that will trigger my skin. And people that haven't seen me broken out now, because I usually am not anymore, they'll be like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong with you? And it's just this feeling of like, oh, if I don't look normal, then it's just uncomfy for other people. So.
Nina, why don't you take this?
Yeah. So school was all right for the most part. I would say after I started going to camp, which was probably right after fourth grade, going into fifth grade, I just kind of got a little bit better about being more myself and not thinking too much about what kids would say about me or like other things, because I did experience my share of, you know, bullying, or just now looking back, maybe not bullying, but just like incessant poking, I guess you could say, like questions. And like you would, it was getting like, it was probably when I was youngest, is probably set first or second grade, is that they would always ask like, oh, why is your, because I would go to school like with bandages sometimes, like my skin would be so bad, raw, or like almost infected, that I would have to be like
Draws my hands.
yeah, like mine was all on my knees and stuff, like in both of them. It was so much stuff that my mom would do for me. But I remember it would just be insistent poking and poking, like, why do you look like that? Why do you have these rashes? Why do you have bumps? And or like, oh, do you have chicken pox? My mom says I can't play with kids that have chicken pox. I don't want to catch anything. And I mean, being 7 or 8 at the time, it was, I think, just an emotional, like sensory overload, if you will, to where it would get to the point where I would try to explain, like, oh, it's a condition I have eczema. And they would just kind of like not understand. And I think me just being so young too, I wasn't well read enough to like explain to them. And we were just also young, like, you know, under 10 years old, that it's still super hard unless I think, you know, like a parent or somebody would sit down and have that conversation to truly understand. So it would get to the point where I would literally start lying about what happened. Like if somebody knew, like for example, if I'm in the bathroom washing my hands and somebody sees that I'm torn up or whatever, and they're like, what happened to you? It would get to the point where I would say like, oh, I fell off my bike, or oh, like I scraped my knee, just to avoid the like confrontation of like, oh, I have like something actually wrong with me, because it was an easier answer, which is sad looking back now, but at the time that's just kind of how I dealt with it. And it was always an easier response rather than, oh, like something's wrong with you, you know.
So you guys touched on something that brought up a memory for me. So when I was still working in Colorado, we had some like Love the Skinner and Family Day events, and when we broke up into small groups, and the small groups were, you know, for kids ranging in age from like 5 to, you know, teenager, and some of the things that we asked them was, you know, things about their relationships with kids at school, and you know, what are some questions that they get asked and how does that make you feel? And the youngest at that table, she was 5 years old, and it's kind of straight from the mouth of babes, but she basically said, you know, a lot of people ask me why I don't have hair. It's gonna make me emotional, but I wish they would just ask me, or just to play with them. And you know, isn't that what we all want? To be able to feel like we belong, that we're accepted for who we are and not just what people see on the outside. And what she doesn't know is, you know, even from the first time that I met her, yeah, they came in to see me because of hair loss. But
Yeah.
she was also a little girl who the very first thing she did when I walked through the door is like she had me come down to her level. She was a little tiny little thing, and she whispers, "I have something important to tell you." And she was like, I have dragon breath and I breathe fire. And that's my very first memory of this little girl who so did I see that she has hair No, that's not the first thing. I just saw that this amazing person with this humongous personality in this little body. And so but that's one of the things that I think with anybody who has a visible skin difference is, you know, that's the first thing that people see. And what we all wish is that they saw what's in here, right? And I think what you guys have done and learned over the years is to be able to show that beyond what they see on the surface, just by being who you are. So so how do you, you know, as you went through it, I know, so by the way, this is also anti-bullying month too, so I'm glad we're kind of talking a little bit about that. And you guys mentioned that you're kind of bullied a little bit. How did that start to affect your own self-image and self-esteem, and at what point do you feel like that turned around? And you know, why don't we start with you?
So I feel like that did have a pretty big impact on my self-image. Because sometimes it was not even something somebody would say directly to me, but there were often times when I would get looks or stares that would be they didn't have, it was to the point where sometimes, and it would just be out and about, like it felt like there were times where I could not like go to the store or whatever and not be almost ostracized, and like I could see people were looking at me. And I mean, they had a right. Some people may have been concerned, there's a kid walking around and they look all beat up, like they have lacerations all over them, why not, you know? But I think at the time, just being so young, trying to process that, like, why are they look like, and it's the way they were, you know, sometimes looking at me. Like there's one instance that has stayed with me for years. I was super young. Again, I don't think any older than 10 is when a lot of more of them, I think, like things I remembered happened. I was walking with my mom into Sam's, which is just like a grocery store, kind of like a Costco. And it's summer here in Houston, so humid, awful. I'm in shorts, I'm in flip-flops, and at the time my legs and feet were the worst. So I wasn't able to like hide anything really. And we're walking through the parking lot in like up to the door. And as we're passing, a girl, maybe around my age, and her mom were leaving. And as they were both passing, I noticed the girl kind of gives me this look, and I will never forget it, because to me it was like she had seen something out of like a horror movie. Like her eyes, and like she didn't even have to open her mouth or say anything. Her eyes just looked scared at whatever she saw, but I knew it was me. And I looked up like at her mom to see, and her mom had a very similar expression. So to me, that was a really big moment, because it wasn't just, oh, the kids aren't just looking at me because they don't know any better. Their parents are looking too. And my mom was always pretty good about, if I told her something or she saw or noticed something, that she would shut it down pretty quickly and say, hey, this is what's up with my daughter. It's not contagious. You know, she's normal like any other kid. She just looks a little bit different. And she didn't catch it for whatever reason. And I told her later, and she was like, oh, you should have told me, because it was like a big thing at the time. But yeah, I think just things like that kind of affected me, and that I became definitely more introverted. Because I think as a kid, I was kind of more like extroverted personality wise, but just because of a lot of things that happened, I became a bit more introverted, just because like I was kind of scared to like make myself more known. Because I was like, my process was, if I make myself more known and more like of a larger presence, that it's people are going to notice it sooner, rather than if I just kind of blend in and don't, you know, try to like put myself out there. And that I think was pretty difficult for me, because it had kind of stuck with me through even high school, to where I would kind of want, not necessarily not talking to people and not engaging with people, but just definitely I knew I would have, and even still to this day, I have much more of an introverted personality, and I'm not maybe as social as I could be at times.
Holly, about you?
I think for me, I kind of did the opposite. I had kind of an introverted phase when I first started elementary school, I think, just because I didn't quite know how to explain it to other children. Like Nina was saying, like, it's really hard to explain what's going on with your skin in a medical way that other kids will understand, or that even I understood at the time. But once that kind of started getting better for me, and I started finding people that, you know, didn't care that I had the skin disorder, once people started getting to know me, I really kind of fell in love with school. So I became the opposite. Like there was always, you know, people that wouldn't understand, or people that would give me looks. And especially in middle school, there was a lot of things with that. But I got super extroverted to where everybody knew me as like the eczema girl. So like if someone didn't know me at that moment, I'd be like, hi, I'm Holly, I have eczema. I would just explain it. Like as soon as I introduced my name, I'd be like, this is why my skin looks like this. So that was kind of my route of dealing with it, was just to put it out there immediately. But I will say that in middle school, I think kind of along the lines of what Nina said also, it's not even what people are saying or that people are intentionally trying to be mean. It's just those looks that you get. Because I would go to school some days, I would like beg my mom to stay home because my skin would look so bad. And a lot of my eczema, when it breaks out, is like on the inside of my arms, my hands, and my face. So that's all areas that, you know, in Texas, it's always 90 degrees. Those are always areas that show. And so I would beg to stay home, and she'd be like, no, you need to go, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I would go, and I would have, you know, this giant rash on my face or whatever going on. And at that time, you know, everybody's trying to fit in. Everybody's just trying to find their friends, just participate in activities. And when you sit there in class and you feel like kind of a freak, it's really hard. And so I would just try to be really nice to people to kind of overcompensate, I guess, for the stuff that I had on my body, which probably wasn't the healthiest thing. And I think that's definitely toned down a lot. But that was my response to it, was to make it super, super known.
So having experienced that, what did it feel like to come to camp where you weren't getting stared at, where you were surrounded by others who understood what you were going through, and how did that change you?
Mm.
Yeah, why don't we start with you? Actually, we'll start with you, Holly.
Okay. Either way. Um, I think it was just kind of a pure joy thing. That's my first memory of camp is like I showed up and everybody has something, and I knew going into it that I'm going to the skin camp where everybody has something. And it was just you focus on people and why you liked that person, not, oh, what's your skin disorder? Oh, what's that? Like sometimes you have those conversations because it's built into cabin time, things like that. So you can have an understanding, but it was just about being a kid. So you really got to be free, and you had people that are watching out for you. So like, you're not going to eat something you shouldn't, or, touch something you shouldn't. So it was a really safe environment that just allowed you to kind of blossom and just be a kid.
How about you, Nina?
Yeah, I feel the same as Holly. I had not really known anybody else up until that point that had eczema other than myself. My brother had it as well, but not to the severity that I had. And he's a bit darker complected than I am. So like typical redness doesn't typically it doesn't show on him. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he had really red or even super dry patches. So he could mask it a bit better. But he was really the only other person I had known with it as a kid. So going to camp for the first time and just seeing that not just people with eczema, but with so many different conditions, and that it was all just a time to just be a kid. And like literally like this is the like for 5 days you get to just have fun and meet a whole bunch of really cool kids and not worry about, are they looking at me weird, or are they saying something like behind my back because they think I look weird, that all like was taken out of the equation. And it was just really wonderful to, I think, have that after like 10 years of kind of just not ever having that.
So, and that's, like you said, is like a week, 5 days, right? And you're in this environment where you feel very safe to be yourself. So what would happen when you went back home after that week? How do you feel like it kind of changed the way you looked at things, or how you interacted with other people? And over time, how, having gone through camp for over and over every summer, we always worry as people on the other side, as camp directors, that, you have this great week at camp, but we hope that what it does is provide tools for you when you go back into that environment where unfortunately you might be struggling a little bit more. So what is it that, like, what was life like after that week of camp for you? And Nina, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so the timing with camp and my skin was kind of an interesting one, as from like my diagnosis at like 3 to about 9, it was at its worst, I think, up until I got a little bit older. Because like right when I started going, which was when I was about 10, it was not like significantly better, but it was to the point where either I had been in school long enough, because I switched schools during elementary school too, so that also added to like having to explain everything again and just reintroduce. So it was a bit difficult, but that was about a year or two before I started going to camp. And by that point, I was going into 5th grade after I had gone to camp for the first time. It did change my outlook and how I felt about myself and how I would engage with other kids. But I think also it helped that my skin was not, I think, as bad as it had been in the past, to where I felt like it was kind of like a change emotionally and physically, and it was enough to like push me forward to be a better version of myself, and some more of myself that I had previously not shown just because I was nervous or afraid to.
How about you?
I think for me, the first time I went to camp, I went to the weekend camp. So it was before it was even like a whole 5-day thing. And I remember even after those just 2 days, knowing that I was not the only person really just kind of put me on a path to be like, hey, I'm not the only one. I know that. It might feel like it, but I'm not. And I remember just like hanging on to emails and things that I exchanged with other campers. And some of them are still people that I talk to like to this day, which is crazy. Like my friend Sophie, which you guys all know, I still text her, at least monthly, if not weekly, about things. So just, it helped me find a community. And through that community, I think I got more comfortable with myself and how to explain things. And that really just kind of brought everything together. So, because when you have people that care, and teach you things, it makes it easier to bring that to other people.
What do you love about having eczema? You can take that, Holly.
I think, kind of piggybacking off of what I just said, I love the community that it's brought. Like, I definitely would not have met either of y'all or, so many people that have been so formative in my life without it. And I think that it has made me a really understanding person, because I know that, when you have something going on, it's not always presenting on the surface, or if it is, how difficult that can be. So I think it's given me a lot of empathy. So I would say I love the people it's brought and kind of the person it's made me into, I would say.
Nina, what do you love about having eczema?
I think just the fact that it has given me a perspective that if I had not have had eczema, I would not have, like, about life and people in general. Similar to what Holly is saying, growing up with an illness, whether it's an invisible illness or like a more prominent one on the surface, like ours is, it teaches you a lot of compassion and understanding at a very young age. And to also, just like try your hardest not to ever judge someone, whether it's appearance or whatever, they may like or dislike, or how they act or what they believe. Just because it's different from you doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. And I think growing up different than other children and just with a condition kind of taught that at a very early age. And I'm very fortunate for that, because I feel if I hadn't gone through that, not that I wouldn't be as empathetic or compassionate as I am today, but I think it did help a lot in growing that way.
You guys both touched on something that I say to a lot of my patients, especially ones who are struggling, is that whether they may not see it now, but having whether it's a chronic illness or a visible skin difference, is kind of like a superpower. And they always look at me kind of weird at first. But when I explain that, is because of the experiences that you are going through, and what you have gone through, are going to go through, and will go through, it makes you a kinder, more compassionate, more empathetic person towards the suffering of others. And when they learn to see it that way, as you have, because you are both super women, it does completely change your perspective, not only for yourself but for others, and it becomes an easier thing to advocate for yourself and for others. And so I just want to thank y'all both for being courageous and brave to share your stories, because I know that there have been times in the past that it's been a struggle, and times when it probably still is. But you've taken those struggles and turned it into such an inspiration for parents and kids who are not at the point where they have the same perspective right now, but I guarantee you that it gives them so much hope. And for me, I've seen y'all at whatever, 7, 8, 9, and grow up into just incredibly confident, independent, nurturing, supportive, caring, just accomplished, beautiful young women. I couldn't be more prouder of you. I'm going to stop there before I get, because that's starting to, but I mean, I just, for example, like at camp, I just remember, for Holly, my first memory of you was you were shy and quiet, but super sweet. And as you went through the different years, what really struck out at me was what an incredible cheerleader you were for everybody else, for your fellow campers, for the younger kids. You were that was part of your nature, to be so nurturing and caring, which for you to be going on to like this, being a budding pediatric dermatologist, you have no idea how incredible that trait is going to be as you go on throughout your career. Because there's some things, we can all learn medical knowledge, but there's some things that aren't necessarily taught, that are inherent. And that's why I already know what an amazing doctor that you're going to be. So, and for you, Nina, same thing. I could tell from the beginning, most of the kids who come to camp start out kind of shy and quiet, but as the years went by, because I don't think you did it in the first couple of years. You started to be more confident to get on that stage and sing. And I don't know that we knew early on what an incredibly talented person that you are. So Nina is like a songster. By the way, Holly can sing too, and she doesn't sing enough. But
like the choir is here, and Nina.
But I what was it, last year or was it earlier this year where you got to be on stage with Hugh Jackman?
That was last year in October, about a year ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, how incredible is that? So it just goes to show you guys. So all of you out there who are watching this or will watch this, remember Holly Novak and Nina Cosme, because they are superstars who are and will continue to change the world. So thank you all so much for being here. Is there any kind of last words that you want to give out to, parents or kids who might be watching this, who need a little bit of inspiration, a little hope? Any last words that you want to tell them?
I would say that whatever you're struggling with, because it is a big weight on families a lot too, because it's a learning curve, but just keep doing your best, and it does work out. No matter how dark it feels at the time, it does work out. And just thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to both of y'all. So
good to see your faces. I mean, none of us have seen each other for over a year, so or longer. So
these are people with the little mask line going on.
I know. It's nice to see your beautiful smiles. So, Nina, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess I would just say to any parents out there, because like Holly said, it can be very difficult, and I know for my parents, it was just very difficult as a parent, watching your child go through something like that and not trying your best to be able to help them, but not everything will or can, just because they may react differently to some medication. Some things may not work. It can be very hard. Just to keep going, keep pushing, and, your kid is going to turn out okay. If you support them and you give them the encouragement they need to be great, they will be great. And if any kids are watching, it does get better. I was told that for many years as a kid and was, not sure if it was my mom just saying it because she was my parent. But it does get better, and it may not seem like that at the moment, but give it time and keep being yourself, and things will turn out in the end.
Well, on that note, I want to acknowledge both of your families and all the people who have supported you, because I think the incredible women that you are today is a testament to how much love that they gave you through the years. And so, thank you to your families as well. Well, I think that's all I have for you guys today. I don't want to take too much of your Friday, but have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll put links below to some of the Camp for All and Camp Discovery, some of the organizations that we talked about that have helped all of us learn a little bit more how to love the skin we're in. And thank you so much, Nina and Holly, for being here. And I hope I get to see y'all in person soon.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
Bye.